So I want to talk about some of the meta trends that are being discussed as we're heading on into YCS Columbus here. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't expect a lot out of this meta. I want to say one of the most interesting discussions I've seen about this format was evidently there was a regional recently. It was the smallest Philadelphia regional out of the weekend, or out of like forever. And I guess the vendor brought like 100 Cool Tune cores and only 8 to 10 sold, which... That's not a good indicator of things. What's going on with that? And I think the thing here is this format is very, very, very intermediate. Most people right now know what's coming. Most people are genuinely expecting we're going to hop over this format. You know, I understand that we just got a ban list where you put Cool Tune on the pedestal and you suddenly have made it the best deck in the room. I mean, that's cool. That's great. And I'm actually happy that's the case. But as we're kind of progressing through things here, that doesn't bode a lot of confidence on me. Now, Blazing Dominion was a very, very good set. All right, it sold very, very well. A lot of pickles. A lot of people picked up Dominant Spark, Solemn Accusations. A lot of people hunkered in on the staples of the block to make sure that they had them. But right now, Cool Tune is just... The player confidence in this deck is hilariously low right now. Now, that brings us to suddenly, why is Fallen of the White exceeding these crazy numbers? You know, why all of a sudden are you seeing Fallen of the Whites just going crazy? Well, couple things here. As I said in the video this morning, your branded community is realizing, oh, hey, Branded's not dead. You know, oh no, we lost a Branded fusion. Oh shit, you know, so disappointing. But you know, we pull our big boy pants up and, you know, we charge on into the other half of the meta and we kind of call it a day. You know, we kind of wash our hands with, you know, one Branded fusion being lost was boo-hoo, whatever, you know, we move along with that. That's great. For the rest of the topic of discussion, though, you've got to look further beyond the current meta. And, you know, we're starting to see a lot of tools and a lot of application being, you know, people want to get further ahead right now. That's always going to be something that people that don't read ahead will get punished for, you know. If you can see, oh, hey, you know, well, maybe I want to play the Mind Shuffle deck going forward here, you know. Going to need some Fallen of White so we can bridge on into the Crimson, you know, the Red Dragon stuff to pivot on in to either the Resonator package or you get the Crimson Call or whatever to bridge on into it that way. Either way, the Fallen and the Virtuous card, the package itself, sticks around even longer. And it makes me wonder, you know, what is Konami's ideal lifespan on Fallen and Virtuous? How long do they intend to allow the extra deck to go, well, you know, we can just Fallen of White, Special, Fling and Albion, grab Fallen and Virtuous. How long does Konami allow this package to kind of stick around and exist in the game? Because it has to have some sort of timer on it, because allowing this package to continue to exist in its current form is very, very, very dangerous. And it's going to continue to be that way for a while. But Fallen of the White Dragon and Branded are actually taking this format, or they're expected to do a lot going into this. Now, the overall, let's go back to Cool Tune here for a second. Player confidence is dwindling off of this. Contrary to what you have seen, all right, get to Aniacraft here in a sec. Judging by, you know, the lack of people wanting to spend money on Cool Tunes, because once again, I mean, you feel like as soon as, you know, you're what, a month and a half away from the next set already, so why spend money on Cool Tune when you get 1 to 2 YCSs to play it, go into the WCQ season? And also, Konami kind of did a consistency punch to the deck, which I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but, you know, the little bit of consistency downgrade that deck just took during the previous list is a little bit of a complaint. You know, actually hitting the 2 synchro overtakes actually was enough to be able to kind of reel the deck back in a little bit and actually get it to kind of get checked. And you know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that, the consistency hit to that deck was enough to get it corrected and get it recalibrated. The deck no longer, you can still get the haha funny free, pushes, but it really is very interesting just to kind of see, the shift with that. Now, that brings us to Aniacraft. And I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Aniacraft being this, really cool counter. Now, did a deck profile last weekend on this, where we got to see Aniacraft, basically playing through 3 Cool Tune people at my locals, and actually ended up doing extremely well with the deck. And then 2 other people got the memo out of their regionals, where suddenly Aniacraft won 2 events. One of those was playing Subspace Battle. And actually this weekend, I saw Triff ended up losing to Aniacraft, and had an entire great speech about how Aniacraft might actually have some potential and that the deck wasn't terrible. Aniacraft doesn't, all the deck does is it just goes whale and just flips down your opponent's stuff. Fat occupies those monster zones, and then all the whale needs to do is just go la-di-da-di-da, flip, 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 and suddenly, you're in an absolutely dumpster fire position. I'm not going to say that Aniacraft is going to win 150% of the time. That is impossible. All right. What you are going to get, though, is you're going to get some unsuspecting duelist that's going to walk into this matchup, and they're going to go, oh, this is Aniacraft. This isn't a problem. And then suddenly, they get absolutely obliterated by this deck because, one, they underestimate because it's, shittercraft. Nobody's going to think, oh, no, the Aniacraft deck it's such a pushover. And then all of a sudden, you get whale flipped on and you're just like, oh, well, yeah. So right now, Branded is probably going to be Branded and Aniacraft. I don't even want to give Aniacraft really the credit here or the time of day to say, oh, no, this deck is good. It's Rogue. As long as it's in a good, decent player's hands, it's going to be able to do something, all right? We wash our hands with that. But Branded Cool Tune are going to be your 2 big challengers. Where is the rest of the scope of this going to take us? You guys you might not have known this today, but many of the peers have also broken some crazy numbers. And it's crazy because I love every time this happens because they're like, oh, hey, Medius the Pure is going to get a reprint, right? Medius gets the reprint in the September set. Well, that doesn't help us for our May, June, or July problems, all right, which is the entirety of the competitive season, all right? So while Medius is up for a beautiful and I assume to be widely available printing, tomorrow's reprint does not solve the problems of today. I had to think about how I wanted to phrase that. But we were talking about in the top decks, Art Mage, Power Patrons, Doomsy, and Elf Note, though focusing here on the Doomsy part. We already saw out of the weekend that Drastias shit their pants on the floor and are now worth a crap ton of money. I guess a few pro players released some spreadsheets, did some data analyzation, showcased some good results for Doomsy, and suddenly, there you go. Doomsy is suddenly an absolutely powerhouse meta-performing deck, and it's actually doing things. Wonderful. That's great. I'm happy for that. But this is genuinely where we're at here, people. All right, Branded, Cool Tune, Shittercraft, and then your pick of the 4 nations, even though technically the Power Patron deck is, the combination of all of the other versions of the decks. It's just how many big beat sticks can you slam onto the field and go. I'm not impressed with this meta at all. A lot of the consensus that I'm reading from the player base is they're not either, but to be fair, when is the player base ever actually happy with things? Me, myself, I just want to skip on ahead to Chaos Origins. I want to get the chance to play, the Mind Shuffle deck. I think the Mind Shuffle deck is a lot of fun. And I would also like to be able to fast forward to, where we can get the Overframe cards so we can actually, get the chance to play these things and get the chance to actually enjoy these. Because we're so far away from actually getting them. Like, it's crazy, but those cards, they do have an impact within the meta. So yeah, that's where we are right now. So please take a second to leave a comment down below. I'm going to put together some tech choices I think that are going to be important for the weekend, and we will get to that point. But you guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.